Hey guys, it's Maddie.
And Deandra, and you're listening to Athletes Unfiltered.
Today we have a little different setup than usual because, it's hard for us to get to the exact same place with, Deandra in season and I'm trying to finish up school. So today we're doing a special episode on Zoom with Jess today.
Yeah, we're super excited. Obviously, we want to get the best possible guest on here as possible. And so we had to switch up the format a little bit for episode 6, but we're super excited and this should be a great episode. So our surprise guest for episode 6 is Jess Mruzik, who formerly played at Penn State. She's originally from Livonia, Michigan. Jess is an outside hitter, and she's earned 3 AVCA All-American honors while playing at Michigan in 2021 and Penn State in 2022, or 2023 and 2024. In 2024, she led the Penn State Lions to an NCAA title and was named Most Outstanding Player in the finals. She also has made her USA national team debut at the 2024 NARIC Final 6 Pan American Cup and led the U.S. in scoring to help secure a silver medal. Now, Jess currently plays for LOVB in Houston, so give it up for Jess Mruzik.
Yay! Hey, girl!
Hey!
Today we're going to be kind of talking about your before college experience, the recruiting process, Michigan, and just kind of whatever you're comfortable talking about, and the transfer decision, the national championship, into where you are now. So first, we're gonna get started off with just tell us about your life before college volleyball. What clubs you play at, and how'd you get introduced into volleyball?
I started playing club in 6th grade. One of my really good friends that I was playing middle school volleyball with kind of convinced me to try out for the team that she was going to play for. And I started at Team Detroit. They started out as a smaller club. And then I played a few years, actually most of my club volleyball days there. And then I made the switch to Legacy my 16s year. Everyone on my team at Team Detroit, we had all basically played together from the moment we started playing volleyball. And then I don't remember exactly how it happened, but everyone just started leaving. And I was like, okay, I should also probably leave. Otherwise I'm going to be the only one left here. So I left and I played my 16s and then I played 18s. I played up because I was graduating from high school early. So I played 2 years at Legacy. And then I went to Michigan a semester early, and that was when COVID happened. So that was crazy.
I bet. Did you like growing up in Michigan?
Yeah, I did. I loved it. But now that I'm out of Michigan, it kind of makes me appreciate it more. I just liked the cold. That kind of sounds crazy, but it gets pretty hot there in the summer. And then being able to transition into the fall and winter is nice. You get to experience a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that is nice. So is that why you kind of wanted to stay at home when going to college?
Yeah, I mean, staying at home was never kind of something I was looking for during my recruiting process. I just always loved Michigan, and I love Ann Arbor, the city that the University of Michigan is in. It's so cute and it's so fun, and it was 45 minutes away from where I grew up, so it felt kind of a different state in a different area, if that makes sense, because where I grew up was nothing like Ann Arbor. So but it was nice that even when I was at college, I could go home for birthdays and family events and stuff. So I was really lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Especially all your family could come to your games and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And with you choosing Michigan, can you explain your recruiting process and how that was for you?
Yeah, well, when we were getting recruited, I feel there were really no rules. I took my first visit in 8th grade. Now it's definitely not like that, but Michigan was my first visit and I loved it for the longest time. And I knew I wanted to stay kind of in the Big Ten. I had looked sort of outside the Big Ten, but mainly my focus was in the Big Ten. And I loved Michigan basically throughout my whole process. And every place I was going, I was comparing it to them. But then when I went to Wisconsin, I loved it. I felt like I really wanted to go there. And then I wanted to kind of circle back with Michigan just because I hadn't been there in so long. Like it had been like a year-ish since I had kind of been there and like chatted with everyone there. And then when I went back and I talked to everyone, I was like, yeah, this is where I want to go. And then I committed my freshman year, like spring of my freshman year, which is crazy.
Yeah,
It was so early for us. Like, I'm so happy they changed the rules because it was so like it was crazy that people were committing like freshman year of high school.
I know. And like I'm happy that for the most part it like worked out and I was able to like be there for 3 years. But I know so many people who they committed like that early and then they left like one semester into being there. So I was very lucky.
I bet. Okay, so you committed to Michigan, whatever. Take us into like your time at Michigan. Like, what was like the biggest highs of being an athlete there? Like, kind of like the lows, and what was your experience like there?
I really loved it. And I think I like just loved being obviously a part of the volleyball program, but also just being like a student athlete at the University of Michigan. Obviously, it's such a good school and the academic piece of Michigan is really challenging. So like being able to be successful in the classroom and as a athlete like was something I took a lot of pride in. And now I think I'm like I think I took that for granted while I was there, but once I stepped outside of Michigan, like I understand now how much like the weight of a Michigan degree holds. And that was something that I really loved about it.
What was your major?
I got my undergrad in exercise science. I thought that I wanted to be like a physical therapist and do hands-on like sports medicine. And then I took some sports management classes and realized that this was not what I wanted to do, but it was way too late to change my major.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I loved it. And like, I loved everyone that I met there. I've met like some of my best friends there and I still keep in touch with a lot of people that I met just like in class and stuff. So I think I really appreciated like the life outside of like volleyball, if that makes sense. But I loved the volleyball program also. I can't really speak to what it is now, but when I was there, like the coaches that we played under just fostered like such a competitive environment. And that's something that I really resonated with. Like I'm so competitive and I love being able to like be aggressive on the volleyball court. And that was something that they kind of pushed. So that's another thing I loved about it.
And obviously, yeah, you were All-American there, like one of the best players. So obviously, do you think it was like the culture that made you so successful and like the coaches and things like that?
Yeah, I think specifically Lisa Rosen, she was the associate head coach. She is such like a competitor herself. She played at Ohio State and she was a baller back then. And she was just as competitive back then as she is now, if she's not even more competitive now. But she just like really allowed us to be free. And I think now in this world, it's so rare to find like strong competitive female athletes. And I think we're kind of making strides in the right direction with like, I feel like the whole Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese like movement kind of that in the right direction. But I mean, a few years ago, that definitely like wasn't the case. And I think she really like fostered that culture and just let us like be ourselves. And I definitely feel like that is a big reason like why I was able to be so successful as a volleyball player there.
I honestly love that for you because I feel like it is kind of hard to find coaches that let you like be yourself on the court, you know, like sometimes coaches kind of like want to form you into something that you're not. So that's good you had that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were at Michigan for how many years?
3.
Okay, so when was the moment that you kind of decided that you wanted to enter the portal?
Yeah, it would have been my 3rd year, which was like technically my junior year of eligibility. We had not made the tournament that year and our season was just like up and down. I feel like the whole year there was a lot of things happening like off the court that were taking like a really big toll on me. And that combined with not making the tournament. And I was also like nearing the end of my undergraduate degree. I felt like I needed to like take a risk and go somewhere else. And honestly, leaving Michigan was like one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. Like, I remember coming home to my parents' house, like just for family dinner one night. And I was just so like distraught with what was going on and the direction that like my career was heading. And I didn't even know if I wanted to play a 5th year because I got the COVID year, but I didn't know if I like even wanted to do that. I didn't know if I wanted to play professional volleyball at that point. Like, my relationship with volleyball was just so bad. And I also like wasn't loving the person that I was becoming while I was there because, like I said, there was a lot of off the court stuff that was happening that, like, looking back on it now, like, it definitely like changed. I kind of wavered in like who I was a little bit and like what I believed in. So I felt like I owed it to myself to at least try to fall back in love with the game. And if I still wasn't sure if I wanted to take that 5th year, but I at least wanted to try for my 4th year and see if wherever I went, if I could go for another year.
That's like, yeah, I feel like honestly, we've all kind of go through that little slump where it's like, you know, we're trying to decide if you really love the sport again, especially the transition from club to college. It's just so different. So with your transfer decision, why did you choose Penn State? And like, how did you adjust to the new system and a new competitive environment?
Honestly, when I was first getting recruited out of the portal, Penn State wasn't one of like my top choices, I would say. Initially, like going into the portal, I had an idea of kind of where I wanted to go, but you never know if it's going to work out just based on if they have a spot for you, if your position's open, like what their roster situation is there. And Penn State had gone through a coaching change, and obviously Coach Rose leaving was like a huge change to the program because he had been there for so long. So I wasn't sure if I didn't really look at them that much. I wasn't sure if I like wanted to go there. And then I fell in love with another school that I'm not going to talk about. But I really love them. But, you know, I did like give Penn State a chance, and I talked to Katie and I talked to Brian, and at the time Dan Gwitt was there, and I like loved my conversations with them. So I was like, okay, even though I love this other school, I really do enjoy talking to everyone at Penn State, and like I like what they're saying. I like really vibe with Katie really well. I feel like I just owe it to myself to take another visit because at that point I was still comparing everything to Michigan. Like Michigan was all I had known throughout basically my whole life. So I felt like I owed it to myself to try something new and just compare 2 different places against each other. And when I went to Penn State, we like went to a men's volleyball game as a part of my visit. And after the game, my dad was like, so are you going to commit like right now or what? And I was like, what? I was like, I think I want to go home and think about it for a few days. But like at the end of the day, I knew that this was where I wanted to go. And I loved like the idea of being a part of something like so big. And everyone's always like, oh no, you're playing for your school, you're playing for something like bigger than yourself. But like at Penn State, I feel like it's that magnified times like a million because of the legacy that Coach Rose and like all of the alumni have kind of left throughout the program. And it was really cool to be at a men's volleyball game and like have people in the student section, they're called the Wrecking Crew. They were like coming up to me, and I wasn't telling anyone that I was like going on visits or anything, but they were like so welcoming, and just people really care about Penn State volleyball, which was cool because at Michigan, like I can definitely say it wasn't like that. You know, there are certain schools where I feel like basketball and football are a priority, and it's honestly probably going to be like that everywhere you go, but it was really refreshing to be a part of a program where like the university actually cares about your sport and like puts money into your sport, and they want to see you succeed.
Yeah. Do you think that like being in the portal, like, you know, like because you committed to Michigan so early, like, do you think it was kind of like a second chance and you kind of like knew what you wanted in a school more because you like, you know?
Yeah, I would say 100%. Like when I committed to Michigan, I knew that I wasn't committing to like a Nebraska, a Penn State, a Stanford, like a program that has like won national championships in the past. I was committing to Michigan to like help put Michigan back on the map because they had always been like a middle of the pack Big Ten team. They'd made it to the Final Four like a few years ago. And I just wanted to like build something. And after doing that for 3 years, you know, the idea like sounds great in your brain and you think everyone is on board until it all comes crashing and burning down and you realize that not everyone was on board with what was going on. So after those 3 years, like I didn't want to do that anymore. And I knew like my eligibility clock was running out. It kind of sounds selfish, but like I didn't have time for that anymore. Like I wanted to win. And like I had said, I'm like the most competitive person you'll ever meet. And I knew that I had to go somewhere where like I had the best chance of winning a national championship.
Yeah, that's so funny you say that because whenever we did our interview with Cam, she was like talking about it, and she was like, yeah, like Jess is so competitive. Like at first I was scared of her, but now I like love her.
To my downfall, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool. And so can you talk about like your journey and like how at Penn State and like the road to winning a national championship and plus like dealing with your coach, like having breast cancer and y'all playing for her, like can you just tell us about that, a whole experience?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I feel like the universe just kind of like aligned for us this year. And I'm like, not that I like don't believe in that stuff, but it was kind of like scary the way that everything had just worked out. At the beginning of the season, Coach Katie had asked us to come up with core values like for the program just as a new start because we had a lot of new pieces coming in. And we like sat down and we went through this whole process and picked them out. And we picked out like slogans and like little pictures and whatnot, like to represent how our season was going to go. And we ended up coming up with the term like bigger than us. And initially that had started with, like I had mentioned before, like playing for something that's way bigger than yourself and playing for like the legacy that's behind the Penn State volleyball program and playing for the alums and playing for all the people who have like helped you get here and stuff like that. And then like Katie tells us that she's been diagnosed with breast cancer. And it's like, oh, okay, this actually like is a lot bigger than us. And sometimes you feel like volleyball and like the sport that you're playing is like the biggest thing in the world. But with her, you know, battling breast cancer and like being the same person basically every single day, no matter how she was feeling, that like really puts into perspective that it is just a game and like what we're doing, it, like we have to show up for her every day because she's showing up for us in the same way every day. And she's going through something that's 10 times bigger than like me shanking a ball and serve receive, you know? So it just put like a lot of perspective into what we were doing. And I think that helped us like battle throughout the season. And it was definitely like a roller coaster of a season. I mean, we went to Wisconsin like towards the end of the year and got absolutely embarrassed, but that was fine because then we had another chance. And like,
Nebraska.
Yes, this is true. This is true. But it was just like, okay, you know, the world's not ending. Did we just get embarrassed on national television? Sure. Do we play on national television again next week? Yeah. So we'll probably be fine. So it brought a lot of like calmness kind of to our program. And then like as things started snowballing and we make it deeper and deeper into the tournament, like the bigger than us thing kind of catches on. I think I like dropped that in an interview or something. And like people cling on to anything these days. And the media just like ran with it. And I was like, you guys have no idea how this even started. But yeah, and then to be able to like be in the national championship, well, actually be in the national semifinal, like with Katie playing Nebraska again, it was just like such a pinch me moment because that really is like what you dream of since you start playing volleyball. Like you're always watching the tournament, you're always watching the national championship. And then looking back on it, like we definitely should not have won the Nebraska game. Like we didn't really like pay attention. I'm not a big person who pays attention to the score, but then I went back and I watched the match like after we had won, and it was like 22 to like 16, and I was like,
yeah, no, we were watching. That was insane.
Like in theory, we definitely should not have won that. And after that, it was kind of like, oh, wow, okay, you know, we still haven't won the national championship yet, but like at that point, I feel like we can do anything.
Yeah.
And then to be in the national championship, like with Katie, and then having DBK be the other coach was just like so cool, having two female head coaches in the national championship and being a part of like that part of the history. But then we win, and it's being able to like give Katie a national championship, and that's kind of like repaying her for everything that she's gone through and everything that she's done for us. So
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of talk about like when you're playing or where you're like playing in such like a high pressure game, like what is your like what goes through your mind? Like what's your mindset? Especially because like I know that like a lot of people on your team like look up to you, and so it's like, do you get nervous? How do you calm down your other teammates? Like how do you lead in such like a high pressure environment?
yeah, I definitely get nervous. I think like that was something that was kind of hard for me to accept at first, but after talking with so many high level athletes, like nervousness is such a normal thing, and if you don't accept it, that's like when it starts getting the best of you. So like even going into the national semifinal, I was definitely really nervous. I knew that eventually like we would settle in, even if it was like 3 sets later or whatever, but I feel like accepting your nervous energy is kind of like the first step of being able to work through it, because there's no going around it. And like when I was younger, I had always kind of been someone that was like a lead by example type of player, and I didn't really understand how to like manage that until I switched over to legacy, and my club coach had kind of like taught me how to like navigate that, because like you said, like a lot of people are looking at me, whether it's like my emotions, my body language, they're looking at me to like put the ball away. And just being able to be like consistent, like I can truly say that every day, like my teammates knew exactly what they were going to get out of me. And like I said, like maybe it was to my downfall, like, but they knew that I was going to walk in there and like compete my ass off and push them and like not let anything slide. And if I like wasn't being vocal or I wasn't doing that, like they knew something was up. So being able to just like be consistent for them also kind of helped me put things external, like in big moments, and be like, okay, I just blew the ball 500 feet out of bounds. It's fine, because like now I have to go back and serve receive and pass the ball, and like Jill's looking at me for my body language. So like being able to do something for them kind of helps me like navigate the big moments, and honestly like gives me a lot of relief, because I feel like I'm not just doing it for myself, like I'm doing it for them, and how I act is like for the betterment of the team, because I know if like I'm losing my shit, someone else next to me is probably going to start losing it too. So
That's awesome. And obviously with everything you've went through, from, you know, struggling with like finding your love for the game and just winning to the national championship, how did it mean, like what did it mean to you to like get the MVP award and just that feeling like you've accomplished it all and you've got everything? Like, how did that feel for you, especially with your journey throughout college?
yeah, it's definitely crazy. Like I don't think even a year ago, like I would have been in the position that I was in the national championship, like playing that well. But I mean, it's awesome, like to be recognized for the MVP stuff. But like, I really do think that just like being able to be there with my teammates, like that sounds so cliche, but I had been through so many highs and so many lows throughout the past 5 years. Like that group of girls, and granted, like we weren't all best friends, which I think is like a big misconception of like a lot of successful teams. We didn't get along all the time. Like we fought, but we like respected each other enough to like work through and understand where each other were coming from. And that was like all I had ever wanted throughout my whole college volleyball career, because it had never been like that. Like there wasn't a lot of respect between teammates throughout the previous 4 years, and then to finally like be at that point and see what a difference it makes is like such a game changer. And I think like the coolest part about the whole situation.
So you finished your your college career like on such a high, and then tell us a little bit about your transition to playing to LOVB, and then like how like pro is like so much different from college.
Yeah, the transition was really quick. We had got back from the national championship on like December 23rd, and we landed in State College, and I drove home that day. So I was able to be home for Christmas Eve and Christmas with my family. And then like 3 days later, my dad and I drove down to Houston, and he like helped me move in and stuff. So the turnaround was really quick. But in terms of like volleyball, I would say, obviously, I think something that's just emphasized to you, like as you keep playing at a higher level, is like how small the margins are. And you can get away with a lot of stuff in college. And everyone always told me that, like, you can get away with shanking a few balls here and there. You can get away with, like, just getting a dig up and not, like, making it perfect. Like, you can get away with a lot of stuff. It's definitely a lot different at the professional level. And I would say, like, the physical side of things is, like, very similar. Like, it is still the same game and it's still, like, harder on your body. But mentally, I would say it's, like, tenfold at this level because, like, you have to be on all the time. And especially when you go and, like, play in high level professional volleyball games, like, a lot of people criticize you because, like, now there's money involved and you're playing with people's money. So that has definitely been an adjustment, just the mental side of things. And, like, now it's my job, but I'm, like, making money playing a sport that I've loved since I was 10 years old. So I'm really lucky, and I try not to, like, put too much weight on the fact that now it's, like, a job. So, but, like, the transition has been so easy. I think the league did such a good job, like, transitioning the initial 6. And I think now there's, like, 8 rookies in the league, and everyone that I've talked to, like, has had the same experience. Like, the transition was really easy. The girls that I'm with are so awesome. I'm so lucky. And I love Houston. So I think it was, like, a pretty easy transition for me, I would say.
I want to ask you how you liked Michigan from Houston, because, like, me and Maddie are both from Texas.
No, I love Texas. I'm loving the no income tax now that I am making money.
Okay.
More money. I also just love, like, now, I mean, it's April, but in Michigan it's still, like, 30 degrees. So I'm loving the warm weather and the sun.
Yeah. You need to go try, like, a good taco place.
I know that is one thing I haven't really had here yet is, like, Mexican food. We've had so much crawfish and so much seafood, but
Houston's fun. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, do you want to continue playing volleyball? Do you want to start coaching or just go into completely just something different? So where do you see yourself?
I definitely would like to play volleyball for as long as possible. Like I said, like, it's so cool that I have the opportunity to, like, make money and have this be my job. Like, it is just a sport. So I definitely want to play, like, for as long as I can. Otherwise, I seriously have no idea because, like, if you were to ask me that question 5 years ago, I definitely would have said I have no freaking idea what I want to do. So no idea. I feel like right now I'm still, like, learning the professional volleyball landscape and, like, how everything works. It's, like, obviously very different from any other job and even, like, other professional sports. Like, in the NBA, you sign, like, a 10-year contract and you're at the same team for 10 years. But, like, I'm signed to Love Houston again next year, which is super nice. I have, like, security in where I'm going. And basically everyone on my team is coming back, which is so nice. But the year after, like, I could be here, I could be at another Love team, or I could be somewhere overseas. So I really have no idea.
Would you be open to going overseas? Well, you did say you're going to the Philippines, right?
Indonesia.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Would you be open to, I guess, like, going to, like, Italy or, like, you know?
Yeah, I think at some point I definitely do. I feel like I just owe it to myself to kind of, like, see what that's like. Everyone here says it's, like, very different than what we're playing in right now. So I feel like I just want to see, like, the difference in, like, competitive level, even, like, attendance, like, turnout. It's obviously such a big deal in Europe.
Yeah.
And we have great attendance, like, don't get me wrong, but it's just, like, such a big deal over there. So
you've been doing so good because, girl, I watched you against, I think it was Austin team, and you've been doing so well, especially, like, transitioning, because I know the pace is, like, a whole different level. And I was, like, cheering you on because I think y'all won that game. But I was like, you're doing so well. So congratulations again, girl. You're inspiring me, even though I don't play no more. So, so we're going to do, like, some rapid fire questions. This is, like, kind of close to the end where you just we're just going to say different random questions. You just give, like, a different response. So the first thing is, like, who is the toughest player you've ever faced or played against?
I would say, God, that's really hard because everyone in this league is really good. I would say probably Haley Washington because she's a middle. everyone knows I love to hit the sharp cross, and she's really good at not letting me do that.
Oh, yeah, which is good.
Okay, what is your pregame ritual, if you have one?
I don't really have one. I think I've like learned to not be superstitious because personally that like sets me up for a recipe for disaster. I'm like really particular with like what I eat on game days, and like the night before, just because I want to like fuel my body right. I like love a sandwich on a game day for lunch. That's like the closest I think I have to like a pregame ritual.
Okay, I feel like that's good enough.
Yeah,
that's good. Because like some people be doing like you have to wear the same socks, same bra, and like the same. And I'm like, okay, now we're doing a little too much, but I'm glad it's not too much for you. But what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say just like stay with it. There were so many times that I wanted to quit, honestly. Like I wanted to quit in high school. I like was borderline almost quitting in college. And I'm really grateful that I just stayed with it. I had a lot of people to like tell me just to, keep going, and you never really know what's going to happen. Like you don't know unless you try. So yeah.
Okay. And then what is one word to describe your journey so far?
Crazy. Like truly crazy. If you guys even do the half of what I went through that I probably should not even put out into the internet, like you guys would also say crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you were able to deal with that craziness and you finished, and now you're making good money playing pro. And I want to say thank you for like joining us today. I know it's been crazy with us trying to meet up in Atlanta and figure out time. So thank you so much for coming on with us today.
This was so cool.
Of course. Thank you guys.